Red Bull is in big trouble after a simple mistake results in a grid penalty for Perez. McLaren reveals a key factor that stopped them from winning the race. And Daniel talks about what caused his false start. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's get straight into the latest F1 news. F1 presenter Will Buxton criticized the punishment given to Red Bull and Sergio Perez, stating that it was far too lenient. Buxton even mentioned the infamous Crashgate scandal in his critique. During the Canadian Grand Prix, Perez spun off the track on lap 53 out of 70, crashing into the barriers at turn 5 and damaging his rear wing. Despite managing to return to the track and make it back to the pits, Perez received a 3-place grid penalty for the next race in Spain, and Red Bull was fined $25,000. By driving with a damaged car back to the pits, Perez violated Article 26.10 of F1's sporting regulations, which requires drivers with serious mechanical issues to leave the track as soon as it is safe to do so. As a result, the stewards imposed the Spanish Grand Prix grid penalty, and Red Bull received a fine because they instructed Perez to bring his RB20 car back to the pit lane. It's worth noting that Max Verstappen of Red Bull won the Canadian Grand Prix. Buxton strongly believes that the punishment does not adequately correspond to the offense. He even draws comparisons between this incident and the Crashgate scandal from the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, in which Renault ordered Nelson Piquet Jr. to deliberately crash to benefit his teammate Fernando Alonso, who eventually won the race. Buxton expressed his views on his X, formerly known as Twitter account, stating, "Personally, I don't think the repercussions for the team are sufficient." The team openly admitted instructing Perez to break the rules, thereby endangering other drivers in order to avoid a safety car situation that could have cost them the victory. Buxton argues that the situation parallels the team directing a driver to violate the rules in order to create a safety car period and gain an advantage. In his opinion, both scenarios involve a few degrees of separation. One results in a grid drop and a fine, while the other references Singapore 08. When questioned by a fan about the resemblance to Crashgate, Buxton clarified, absolutely not saying it was intentional. The only similarity lies in the fact that it involved a team instructing a driver to contravene the rules to manipulate the deployment of a safety car. I find it intriguing that Red Bull would openly admit their thinking regarding this matter. The Canadian Grand Prix proved to be another disappointing weekend for Perez, who recently signed a multi-year deal with Red Bull. Since the Chinese Grand Prix in April, he hasn't achieved a podium finish. While Lando Norris feels that McLaren left a win on the table in Canada, team boss Andrea Stella, who admits the safety car timing was unfortunate, also highlighted a pace deficit to Mercedes in expressing satisfaction with the result. After passing Red Bull's Max Verstappen and Mercedes' George Russell for the race lead before escaping into the distance, a pivotal point for Norris in the victory battle arrived when Logan Sargent spun out at the exit of Turn 6, triggering the safety car. Norris stopped the lap after Russell and Verstappen, despite Norris revealing that he did have time to also dive into the pit lane upon the safety car deployment, but they opted against it. Team principal Stella, speaking to media after the race, confirmed that it could have been done, admitting that Norris got unlucky with the safety car timing having returned to the race now P3. "We took a quick look. It looks like he was 1.5 seconds from the pit, from the time actually where you needed to turn or you'll go in straight," said Stella. In hindsight, we could have told the driver in case of safety car pit, so he would have just reacted instinctively to just pit. But we were monitoring the intensity of the rain, and this intensity in the last few minutes was kind of reducing. So, we didn't want to pit unnecessarily for a new set of inters, when this set of inters could have been good enough in case of very light rain. I think it was much easier for the car behind to kind of do the opposite, for instance, as Lando. I think that's a little bit unlucky, not only with the timing of when the safety car was deployed with respect to Lando's position on track, but also the time of the safety car in the race, because at that time Lando was by far the fastest car. Norris would later try the overcut as the track dried and emerged from the pit lane neck and neck with Verstappen on slick tires, but with his Pirelli rubber in the working window, Verstappen secured the lead and went on to win the Canadian Grand Prix, Norris winning out in a subsequent battle with Russell to claim P2. A frustrated Norris said, "We should have won today, it's as simple as that." But with Stella arguing that Mercedes should have finished ahead of Norris on pace in that final dry stint, the fact that they did not means the team are happy with the result. Put to him that the disappointment not to have won is testament to the team's progress. Stella replied. Yeah, I think you're right. This sort of little disappointment for a victory that was possible today is actually testament of the fact that the team has come a long way and we are now regular podium contenders or at times even victory contenders. At the same time, I look at the positives, and there are many, like certainly the team has been consistent in being competitive, despite the variation of track conditions and so on, which is something that you never can give for granted, and you don't gain any credit because you've been like this in the past. Every race weekend you have to gain your money. So ultimately, we ideally should make the car a little bit faster and then be in condition to chase the victory independent of the conditions on track or the track characteristics. Because today we have to say that when we were in dry conditions, Mercedes was faster than us. So we're still not in a position where we can gain the victory out of outright performance. I think Mercedes should have finished ahead of Lando today. So if anything, we maximized what was available after the safety car. Without the safety car, then I think Lando could have accumulated such a large advantage that then we could have tried to make it to the end on the dry tires. But I think Mercedes, they could have caught up, because they were a few tenths of a second faster than us today. So we really needed a decent advantage to make it safely to the end. But obviously this is a little bit AC. George Russell admitted that he was determined to outperform his Mercedes teammate, Lewis Hamilton, and secure a podium finish at the Canadian Grand Prix. He felt like he had disappointed the team earlier in the race due to some errors he had made. During the qualifying session in Montreal, Russell achieved his second pole position of his career, matching the lap time set by Max Verstappen in his Red Bull. This marked Mercedes' strongest performance in the F1 2024 season so far. However, on race day, a series of mistakes caused Russell to slip to third place, with Verstappen taking the lead and Lando Norris from McLaren securing second place. Towards the end of the race at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Russell had to defend his position from Hamilton, as both drivers were determined to secure Mercedes' first podium finish of the season. Ultimately, the 26-year-old managed to stay ahead, crossing the finish line just 0.6 of a second before his esteemed teammate. Following the race, Russell expressed his motivation to salvage a podium position after missing the opportunity to battle Verstappen for victory. He commended Hamilton for their tough but fair competition for third place. In his post-race remarks, Russell stated, "In those last 3 laps, my focus was entirely on reclaiming a podium position. I felt like I had let the team down a bit by losing sight of Max and making a few mistakes that put me in that position in the first place. Racing against someone as great as Lewis is always challenging yet fair." It was really satisfying to witness that at the end. When questioned about whether Mercedes could take positives from the weekend, considering their most convincing performance in the W15 car to date, Russell responded enthusiastically, saying, "Absolutely, without a doubt. If you had told us before this weekend that we would secure pole position and come in third, we may not have believed you, to be honest." However, the race was incredibly demanding for everyone. A slight miscalculation could throw you off track. Personally, I feel that I made one too many mistakes at crucial moments, which ultimately prevented us from truly contesting against these two drivers towards the end of the race. Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff commented on Russell's performance, stating, "On one hand, there were moments of brilliance in the race, but on the other hand, perhaps some mistakes could have been avoided." Daniel Ricciardo revealed that an issue with the clutch may have caused his jump start at the Canadian Grand Prix, and fans on social media strongly criticized the 5-second penalty imposed on the RB driver, considering it to be completely unreasonable. Ricciardo showcased an impressive performance during qualifying, securing the 5th position on the starting grid at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. However, his race got off to a rocky start when it was discovered that he had made an early move before the lights went out. Though it seemed that his car hadn't budged prior to the race start, the Australian driver was swiftly penalized with a 5-second penalty. This decision incensed fans on social media, with many expressing their disdain for the penalty, and some even suggesting that Ricciardo had been unjustly treated. Despite facing changeable weather conditions, the 34-year-old driver managed to bounce back from this setback and secure his first points in a Grand Prix this season. He previously earned points in the F1 2024 season during the Miami race, where he finished 4th in the sprint race. When informed about the penalty, Ricciardo admitted feeling confused. He acknowledged that he noticed his car creeping forward on the starting grid before the lights went out, leading him to suspect a possible issue with the clutch. Speaking to reporters in Montreal, Ricciardo said, "I felt like the race was slipping away from us. The start itself was quite messy, and I lost a couple of positions there. Around turn 2, I vividly remember Lewis Hamilton overtaking me with ease, and I was left trailing behind. I lost some ground there, and then I was informed about the penalty," he continued. He confessed, "I was quite puzzled because I knew I hadn't jumped the lights, but I vaguely recall the car moving slightly while I was focusing on the lights. So I suppose we were facing a potential clutch problem. That would be my assumption." Ricciardo initially believed his chance of scoring points had vanished after losing positions due to the unpredictable conditions. However, he was delighted to recover and secure 8th place after a challenging race. He added, "I had the penalty, and then when the rain started falling, we made a pit stop for fresh intermediate tires while others stayed out, causing us to lose track position. I felt like we were losing grip on the race, but towards the end, when the track dried up, we managed to make our way past some cars and fortunately gather a decent amount of points. So all in all, I'm satisfied. It's difficult to perform flawlessly in these races, and I definitely made some mistakes. At times, we were just trying to survive, so I'm pleased we ultimately reached a favorable outcome." Sauber has brought Stefano Sordo on board as the performance director, a position that was recently established. Over the past 2 years, Sauber has made significant signings leading up to Audi's official takeover in 2026. Among these signings are Andrea Seidel, who became Sauber's CEO after leaving McLaren, and James Key, who also joined from McLaren last September. Stefano Sordo is the latest addition to the team, having previously served as the technical director for RLL Racing in IndyCar. He will report directly to James Key and brings a wealth of performance-based experience from his time at McLaren and Red Bull. Sordo played a vital role in Red Bull's championship victories between 2010 and 2013, and later secured a race win during his tenure at McLaren. Stella, speaking about Stefano's appointment, stated, "Bringing Stefano on board is a significant step in the development of our technical department structure. With his extensive experience and versatile background, he is well equipped to analyze our technical operations' strengths and weaknesses and address any areas that require attention. We have a talented technical team in Hinwil, and Stefano's appointment will allow us to harness their skills and translate them into performance during this crucial time for our team as we prepare for the debut of the Audi F1 Works team." Sordo expressed his enthusiasm upon joining Sauber, now known as Stake F1 Team Kick Sauber. He acknowledged the company's existing potential and his role in unlocking its performance further, especially with the upcoming Audi adventure. As the team stands at a pivotal moment in its history, Stefano looks forward to the challenges that lie ahead. He expressed confidence in the team's ambitious goals and noted the positive attitude within the organization. In the upcoming season, Sordo will collaborate with Nico Hülkenberg, as Sauber confirmed his position as one of their drivers through a multi-year contract. The identity of his teammate remains unknown, although rumors suggest that Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu may not retain their seats, while Carlos Sainz and Esteban Ocon are potential candidates. The team, however, is not rushing the decision. Alessandro Aluni Bravi commented, "I believe there is no set deadline. By securing Nico Hülkenberg, who is a valuable addition and aligns with Audi's long-term project in F1, we have taken a proactive step in the market. Hence, we have sufficient time to assess and choose the best available options." Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one.